Hey guys, welcome to Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, hope you like what you hear. We have an outstanding guest on today. We connected with Levi a couple weeks ago, and we've been looking forward to having him on the podcast. Levi and his wife Stephanie have founded a a nonprofit called the Melodic Caring Project, and they do a really cool thing targeted at kids that are isolated largely through illness that he's going to talk about. And the thing we love about Levi is his candidness, his straightforwardness, and his willingness to just kind of share how he got from the first time he picked up a musical instrument to where he's at now. And it is not a linear path. It is not easy. It was not easy all the time, and he just does such a good job of expressing all of those things. So, without further ado, let's just bring Levi on right now. So, Levi, thanks so much for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, man. Thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. So for listeners, Levi and I connected a couple weeks ago. We had a great conversation. It was very funny because he was gracious enough to squeeze us into his busy schedule. We'll understand why his schedule's so busy after the episode. But when he came on to camera, he was in his car and he had a name badge on. And I asked him what was going on. And he was at like a mixer event, networking. And I told him, as many of those things as I've been to in my life, if I'd saved my name badges, I could probably wallpaper a room. So we commiserated over that for a little bit. But yeah, so Levi is a musician and is a lifelong musician, and he has some really cool collaborations in his background. But the coolest thing about him is the not for profit that he has founded, and it does such good work. We wanted to bring him on so we could talk about it with you guys, as well as kind of explain how he got there, because it's not a linear path. And we talk a lot on the podcast about how taking action can lead you down paths that are really good for you and really rewarding to you, but were not obvious to you when you started out. But by taking action, you can put yourself in really good situations. And I think Levi is kind of a living testament of that. Plus, what he does is so fucking cool. We wanted to make sure it got broadcast out there. So, with all that said, Levi, if you wouldn't mind giving the group just a brief background about yourself, and then we'll jump in with some more pointed questions and get into your foundation and the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Joe, I mean, again, thank you so much for having me for shining a light on Melodic Caring Project and what we're doing. It means the world. Really appreciate it. So thanks for sharing your platform.
You bet.
So yeah, I am like you stated in the introduction, I am a musician, a singer-songwriter. I have been playing for almost 30 years now, recording, releasing, touring, and music is just an absolute love of mine. It's one of those things that I think gets into your blood, and you can't exercise it once it's in you, And so I love it for a lot of reasons. I love music for the way it brings people together that wouldn't normally share spaces. I love it for the fact that it brings me into spaces that I wouldn't normally visit. It's brought me to states that I would never have gone to. It's brought me to countries I never would have gone to. And there's just it's like a door to a whole world that is unfolded that I never would have seen coming. And I love it. I just appreciate the journey that it's brought me on. So, um, like you mentioned, the Melodic Caring Project is kind of one of my key focuses now, and I'll tell you all about Melodic Caring Project. But really, I mean, the entire uh, man, I would say the purpose for my life right now was something that was only revealed to me through this music journey that I went on, and I think purpose is critical. It's very important to have purpose in your life and in your work, that informs you, that inspires you, that keeps you moving forward and keeps you wanting to engage. I think it's too easy in life in some ways to just fall into a comfort zone, and for fear of losing comfort, not experience all that life has to offer. And that's why, why I'm so grateful for this, because it's not been easy. It's not been an easy path, but it's been such a good path, and so worth the time and the effort.
Love it. Yeah. So look, Levi just said something there that I think is very poignant. Has not been easy, but very rewarding. Right. So we talk about that a lot, that you have to learn to push through adversity when it presents itself, because what you want could just be on the other side of that obstacle that you have to overcome. So I think that's great. You hear it over and over again from the outstanding people that we bring onto the podcast. And there's a reason that you hear successful people talk about it over and over again and acknowledge that things are sometimes tough and you have to fight through them. So,
Well,
how many
it's actually interesting. I was sorry, just
no,
real
go ahead.
quickly to talk to that. I was just listening to an interview with Sam Altman, and he was saying that in his experience as a business, well, as an entrepreneur, but as just a remarkably successful businessman, he said that what he has seen more than anything is not a lack of talent, not a lack of skill. The thing that sinks businesses, or sinks lives in this case, right, is not having the will to continue, just not having enough fight to keep going. And there's that saying, it always gets darkest just before the dawn. I think that that's the reality of life. If you're never challenged, you're probably not on the right path. The challenge is the thing that's the indicator that you're doing something good, because good things are hard.
Totally. Totally. I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm a big fan of Ted Lasso, the show Ted Lasso. I don't know if you've ever seen it or not, but
I never have, but I know I need to.
if you have Apple TV, it's well worth the watch, because they just do such a good job on that show. And the whole thing about it is, he, as a coach, he's a soccer coach in England. He's actually a football coach that coaches soccer, even though he's never coached soccer before. And his whole thing is focusing on making his players good people. And by focusing on them as people, he can bring out the best of them, both as a person and as a footballer, like they like to call him in
Mhm.
London. And he gets the whole team hooked on romantic comedies, because he uses rom-coms as an analogy that says, rom-coms never end in the forest. And even though things are bad, we're in the forest right now, but I know things will get better, because these situations never end in the darkness. They always end somewhere down the road. And it just made me think of it when you were talking about that, which is just, it's awesome. So, but yeah, newsflash, if you haven't seen Ted Lasso, anyone that's listening, you should watch it. There's a lot of life lessons that are really worth listening to in Ted Lasso, at least from my perspective, that there are. So music, how many instruments do you play? I would bet you play multiple instruments.
Yeah, I do. Not because I'm good at it, but because I love challenge, right? I love something. Here's the thing, guitar is my primary instrument. I played guitar for 30 plus years, and I love it. But I think, as with anything, it's easy to stall out, and you start just doing repetitive motions and you get into a rut. And I love picking up a new instrument, because it engages your music mind, but in just an off enough way that it forces you to approach it with a new perspective. And so I play mandolin, I play ukulele, I dabble in banjo and piano, and all of them are just a slightly different approach. So if I feel like I'm just on a guitar doing the same thing over and over again, I'll pick up a different instrument. Or if I feel like I'm writing a song that I really like, but it just is try that same song on a different instrument, and it's all the same chords, it's the same melody, but it can just give it a completely new life. So I love picking up new instruments. Oh, I
That's
play
awesome.
bass as well. Just so yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I'm very perceptive. I would have guessed that guitar was your primary instrument based on your background.
Yes.
Gun to my head, that would have been my guess. So, um, at what age did you start playing? I'm assuming you started playing the guitar first. Is that right?
Yeah. I started playing at 15. So I was a kid that was kind of hard to focus. I was a little spazzy. I was homeschooled, and I think my mom, bless her, did a remarkable job raising three boys, homeschooling three boys, and educating us when the last thing we wanted to do was sit down and sit still. And I think probably more out of desperation than anything, one day when I couldn't sit still, couldn't focus, she thought she needed to do something to focus my attention, and she put a guitar in my hands. And she played when she was younger, and yeah, just put a guitar in my hands to see if it would click. And she showed me a few chords, and it was the first time in my life at 15 years old that just all of that noise, all of that manic energy went zoop and just focused to a point that was something that engaged like every part of me. And I think it was the act of playing, of learning, but it was the ability to communicate as well in a way that it was like a whole new tool to communicate, right? And a whole new, which then becomes a whole new lens of the world. It's the how you view the world, it's how you engage with the world, it's how um it becomes something fundamental to who and what you are, you know? And that was the first thing that really focused me in that way. So since 15, I just haven't been able to put it down.
Wow. So you're 15, you pick up the guitar. It sounds like love at first chord. Um, how do you go from there to your first band? Let's just start there and we'll work our way forward.
Yeah, totally. Unintentionally, you know, I never guitar was not performance to me at all. It was much more of a, like I say, it was like this, it was like a voice. It was a new way to express what I was feeling inside. And I think, you know, in your teens, I would say especially young men, but I think that this is probably across the board for all young people. You know, you are dealing with so many emotions, new hormones, there's so much happening when you're young and growing, and you can't figure out how to express it, right? Which is where I think a lot of poor decisions are made. You know, you've got all this pent up feeling, emotion, whatever it is. You don't have a healthy way to express it, and so you make bad choices, you know, and when I was a kid, I think guitar was one of those things that was like it gave me a good, healthy way to express all of these things that I was feeling. And so it was like this very internal focus thing. I wasn't thinking about the external at all. Just playing and loving that experience and that journey of creating melody and figuring out how to put my emotions into just sounds, right? Because I wasn't writing songs. There was no lyrics. There was no it was all of it was just guitar melody, whether that was kind of through solos or through chord progressions. And then at 16, I met a guy who turned out to be my best friend. His name is Ethan, and he was a singer. He liked to sing. I was a guitarist. I liked to play, and we just started kind of dabbling together, you know. And he was writing some lyrics and writing some melodies, and I would write you know the guitar melody that was the accompaniment for the whole song. And so we just kind of started dabbling together, playing, expressing ourselves, you know. And again, it wasn't about performing because we weren't performing. We were just playing. It was just him and I, you know. And then, you know, one of those things, like somebody heard one of our songs as we were playing it, and wow, that's really good. You guys should, you know, you should take that out and play it somewhere. It's like, oh, wow, huh. Yeah, hadn't really thought about that, you know. And then we went and played an open mic at a coffee shop. I'm sure you know, this is a very common story for musicians as you kind of stumble into this, you know, this journey that becomes something you realize, man, I want more of this, you know. And so we started playing coffee shops, and then we started playing, you know, shows at local schools, middle schools, high schools, that kind of thing. And at 19, we had recorded an album and released an album, and then we started touring around Washington State, playing more out of. So we grew up in Marysville, Washington, which is a, you know, not a big town. And we had to get outside of our hometown to find more places to play. So we started going down into Everett and down into Seattle. And, you know, playing in Seattle then led us to playing in Portland. And playing in Portland, we thought, man, this is great. And we started booking shows all around the West Coast. And then we discovered something called the National Association of Campus Activities, which is just it's like a conglomeration of universities that come together to there's trade shows essentially, and you go as a artist or as a musician to try to find new schools you can play at. And so we started playing at these NACA conferences, and then we started touring like the full West Coast and Montana and Idaho, and we started moving farther east until we were kind of touring the nation.
Wow, that's awesome. So, side note, I played in a baseball tournament in Marysville, Washington
Oh,
in 1985, and I was there for a week. I wonder if we met. at some point during that
I
week.
In 85, I would have been over on Whidbey Island still. So I was raised on Whidbey Island.
Okay,
And
sure.
then my family moved to Marysville in maybe 88 or 89, something like that. So I missed you by a couple of years, but I bet I felt your presence on that baseball field because I visited many a baseball field in Marysville.
For what it's worth, we won the tournament, so it was a
Hey,
big
all
deal for
right.
us. Yeah, it was a big deal for us to win that tournament. But yeah, so you're touring. I bet you were just printing money at this point, right? You're rich beyond your.
Oh, nothing has a better financial return than music, Joe. I don't know if you knew this. Man, it's funny because I think it's good, honestly. At the time I thought it was torture in a way. In retrospect, I think it's a beautiful thing that um all would-be artists, musicians, anybody that wants to live off of art needs to experience the struggle of trying to live off of art. I think there are very few artists that start, make it big, and it doesn't ruin them. They're probably out there, but it's a very small amount.
Mm,
And I think because of the nature of what art is, where it comes from, the way it engages people, the way people treat you because of it, you have to be tempered, you have to be humbled, and you have to go into it um with a perspective that can only come through struggle. If you get into music without struggle, I think pretty quickly it destroys you and spits you out. So yeah, we were making no money. I was working construction full time, and it's one of those things that everybody. I think from the outside looking in, the perspective is always more glamorous than it looks like, right? People always assume you're out, you're making money or you wouldn't be doing it, and that's just not true, man. We were spending 10, 15 grand to record an album, then you're on tour and you're paying for, everything, gas, hotels, food. Um, it was at best only ever a break even, and typically we would come back from touring and be working our 9 to 5 jobs so that we could get back on the road and go tour again. And that was the way it is. That is the life of a musician for the most part. And I now with Melodic Caring Project work with a lot of musicians that are very established artists that are not household names, but solid B-level artists that most people go, oh yeah, I've heard of them. And they're not making money. Most of them are not making money. They're surviving, doing what they love.
mm. Yeah, and I wanted to call that out for the audience because to your point, I experience the same thing in sports where people think it's glamorous. Well, I can tell you it ain't glamorous in a weight room at 6 a.m. There's no glamour in the weight room at 6 a.m. There's no glamour when you're running sprints till you throw up. It's not
Yeah, that's
glamorous.
not what glamour smells like. A 6 a.m. weight room.
Exactly. Exactly right. And I just think it's important. So, but you're so passionate
Yeah.
about it and you care about it so much it doesn't even occur to you that you shouldn't be doing it. Like it would, I'm sure it's never been like, maybe I should just quit playing music and go be an accountant, right?
No, man. Well, that's right. And the thing is, I think it's the fact that you're doing it because you love it that can easily get lost in that exchange of doing it because you love it and doing it because it's your job. That's a very critical transition that ruins a lot of athletes, ruins a lot of musicians, ruins a lot of, artists in general. That is like a fraught exchange to navigate.
Yeah, for sure. Were you single all this time or were you in relationships or how did that work?
No, I was in I was single for a lot of it, and then I was in a kind of a long-term relationship that was a complex, I'll say, and became codependent, and was not a healthy relationship. And um, after 20 years of touring and playing and doing what I love, but I was in that exchange, right? Of how do we do this more? How can we do this and not have to get off tour and go work construction so that I can go back on tour? We started to change the way we were playing music and why we were playing music, and we started doing radio tours because we had our third album that came out. picked up quite a bit of radio traction. We were top 20 in the nation on AAA radio, and so, because of the nature of the industry, what that meant was now we have to start going and playing at radio stations rather than touring and playing colleges. Well, colleges are a lot more fun and you make money. Radio stations are expensive because you're paying to take the music directors out, the whether it's the program directors, the music directors, the whatever, we were touring from town to town, city to city, station to station, meeting up with the executives at the station, taking them out for meals, trying to get our music played on the radio more, which then is supposed to mean that if you're getting more radio, then you follow that up with a tour and then you start to make money, but it's really easy to get gobbled up by that just by by that rigmarole. And that's kind of what happened. We lost the I'll say I lost the inspiration for why I loved playing music, right? I wasn't playing music because I wanted to be on the radio. I wasn't playing music because I wanted to be in front of crowds. I was playing music because it was a critical way for me to express what I was feeling. And as I expressed what I was feeling, other people resonated with it, and that's what made them want to listen. But as you start to write music that you feel other people want to hear, you lose touch with the thing that inspires your music in the first place. And people, funny enough, most people probably don't realize this, but they don't want to hear what they think they want to hear. They want to hear what engages them.
Mm.
And that comes from a place of authenticity. And when artists lose that authenticity in pursuit of trying to make a career in the music industry, then you lose touch with the people that you were connecting with in the first place.
Makes perfect sense. Just a personal anecdote on that. So I get ridiculed a lot for this, but I argue that the best love song ever written is Whole Lotta Love by Led Zeppelin. And people like it's a rock song about a guy that wants to bang a chick. Yes, but when you listen to that song, and I heard, I can't remember if it was Robert Plant or if it was Jimmy Page, but one of them said the radio station wanted to play it, but they wanted to truncate the instrumental that's in the middle of it. There's like a 2-minute instrumental in the middle of Whole Lotta Love. And Led Zeppelin said, fuck you. You either play the whole thing or don't play it at all. And when I went back after I heard that interview and listened to it, the whole instrumental made sense to me. Like I can't listen to the song if it's truncated because
without it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the buildup of kind of the visceral intensity that they feel towards the person they're singing the song about. And like it clicked in my head. And I'm not a musician, I've never written songs, any of that stuff, but I'm not an idiot either. And I just love just the raw emotion that it emanates from that song every single time you listen
Man,
to it.
that's like one of the most ripping solos. When that solo hits, it is so good. And it's funny because leave it to radio to do that, right? To cut the passion of the song so that it fits in a 3-minute format. That's not why the song was written in the first place. It wasn't fit, or wasn't written for a format. It was written exactly like you said, right? Out of this place of passion and authenticity and expressing something. That's what people want to hear, whether they know it or not.
Yep. And there's so much creativity in there too. I mean, they got bongo drums in there. You got Jimmy Page playing his guitar with a violin bow. Robert Plant is making kind of guttural noises every once in a while
Yep.
to kind of illustrate point. Like it's such a great song when you listen to it from that context. So you're kind of, you're making it, but, you're making it so let me rephrase that because I don't think what I'm saying is right. From a from an outside perspective, people would look at you and
Yep.
say, hey, you're touring, you're on radio, things are going really well for you, but you sound like you're a little bit disenchanted with kind of how everything is working and what's going on. Is that accurate assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that goes into it, right? I went from my early 20s to my late 20s, and just a lot in life changes in those years, right? I mean, you're there's a lot of kind of arrested development that happens as other friends are moving on, they're graduating, they're going to college, they're going, And we were so focused on this dream of ours of playing music that like consumed our entire beings, and I love it. I think we got an education that a lot of people don't get. As a struggling young band, we had to learn to do everything. We had to do our merch, we had to do our own design, we had to do our own promotion, we had to do our own marketing, we had to do, and there was a huge education that came with all of that. I never went to college, but it gave me a good business mind, right? We were interfacing with, professionally interfacing with management, with club owners, with our crowd, with our audience, so there was so much personal growth that came through all of that that really was not just growth, but very well rounded. You had to learn to function in every aspect of what was going on. And so I think it was really good for us, but at the same time, coming up on my 30s, realizing I need to grow. There's other things about me that need to grow, and having kind of lost the I would say the impetus for what music was. I was still writing a lot of songs that we weren't recording or releasing because they were songs that were meaningful to me, but not songs that felt like radio hits, right? And this is
Mm,
where that pursuit of trying to turn your passion into your full-time job can crush your passion, and where you lose sight of what matters and what inspired all of it in the first place, right? So as I was writing these songs, they were getting shelved because, yeah, great song, but not a radio song. So we need more radio songs. And I got to the point where, and for me, music is always, there's always been more to music. There's something just intrinsically powerful about music, the way it connects people, the way it, if you, anytime you go to a venue, next time you go to a show, just look around you and say, would I spend time with this person outside of this show, right? Would we be sharing a space together? And
right.
the reality is no. That's the beauty of that environment, is the music is bringing people together from all walks of life, all upbringings, all ideals, all beliefs, and you're sharing a space and you're sharing something that you believe in. And the world needs that. We need something that brings us together and reminds us that we're a community, not because we all feel and believe the same things, but because it takes different ideas, different beliefs to create community. And there's a beauty in that. And so for me, as I was watching my music connect with people that I knew didn't share my ideals, my upbringing, felt like, man, it's a language that's just remarkably powerful. And I always felt that there was more purpose for my music than I had discovered. And so, especially the more we went down that road of radio tours and trying to figure out how to make music the one thing, I felt like the purpose for my music and this passion was slipping through my fingers. And that is something I needed to discover. I needed to reconnect with that passion that inspired the music in the first place. And so at 28, I decided it's time for me to step away and do something different. And I kind of thought that I was going to step away from music in general. I just thought I'm missing something and I need to go figure it out. And so I had all of these songs that were not band songs, they were personal songs. And I didn't think anybody would really want to hear them because my focus was so on radio at that point. But I thought I'm going to record these songs as my final hurrah for music. And then I'm going to go figure out what else life has for me. And so I went into the studio, I recorded my first solo album, never intending to share it with anybody other than my family, because it's a very personal album to me. There's a lot of, like I say, I was in a long-term relationship that was a kind of a codependent, unhealthy relationship. So there's a lot about that. There's a lot about my grandparents had passed away in the meantime, and I was so busy playing music that I wasn't present enough. My brother had gotten married and started to have kids, and I was as present as I could be while being on the road. I wasn't there when his first daughter was born. I was on the road down in California. And so it was all of those sorts of things that were real life experiences that went into writing these songs. And I put this album together, and I shared it with my family. And like I said, never intended to really share it beyond that. And it reawakened that I guess that first realization that I had with music and connection is that people want to connect with authenticity. And as my family started to share it with people, I started to hear from people that I never intended to share it with that, wow, that album was really meaningful to me. It was really significant for me. And it reminded me that I never got into music uh, to reach a broad audience. That was never the point, right? I got into music to express something that I was feeling and needed to be put out in, in a way that was relatable. Because another funny thing about music is you can put something into a song and people will memorize every word of it. You can go and try to essentially communicate that same thing verbally in a conversation, and people will go, "Oh man, I don't want to hear about that. I don't want," they. So it's really interesting because they'll open themselves up to something in a song form that they don't want to hear about, somebody talking about or preaching about or whatever the case, And so that's what I realized is that all of these deep, heavy experiences I had had over the course of the last 10 years that went into songs people related to because guess what? It's life. Everybody is dealing with something. Everybody is struggling with something, and a lot of people don't know how to express that thing that they're struggling with. And when they find a song that puts their feelings into words, it opens something in them that is, it's a form of expression for them as well. And then they take that song and make it their own, And I think that's the job of a musician. You've been given something that you are meant to communicate out to the world. And if you don't, then that gift dies with you, And it was a gift to you. It only continues to be a gift if you share it with the world. And you never know who it's going to touch or what it's going to do. But that's what happened. And then I moved. I moved away. I moved to Hawaii for a couple of years, thinking I was done with music and I was going to continue on with my life. And what I realized is it doesn't matter if I'm playing in front of 1,000 people or nobody on my couch, in my living room. I'm going to continue playing music because it's critical to what and who I am.
Wow. So how'd you get back into it after your hiatus?
Well, I never really stopped in reality, I
Mm.
released that album, I moved away and I put my guitar up for a while, and just I had to work through a lot of things. I was supposed to have gotten married. I walked out on my wedding day, realized I can't do this. This is not right. This is not the right relationship, and I'd been in it for 8 years and had to call her the morning of my wedding and say, we can't get married today. I can't do this,
Wow.
and my life, I would say it fell apart in a way, right? It was like it decimated. It was reduced down to the fundamentals of who and what I am. And I had to, with walking away from music, which was really big to how I viewed myself, right? It was a big part of my identity. And having walked away from that and then walked away from this relationship, I was re familiarizing myself with what I am and what matters to me and who I am as a person, what I want to be, And as I was grappling with all of that, guess what? I realized that music is once again my safe place to sort through these emotions, sort through these feelings, and and get them outside of myself, right? When I learned that I journal a lot too. So as I journaled, those journal entries became songs, and those songs then lived outside of me, which was healthy because then I could look at what I was dealing with. It's like, I mean, like I say, it's therapy. I mean, I would say 90+% of artists will say that their music is their therapy because if you can take this bundle of emotion that you're feeling and get it out, then you can analyze it and you can start to, in a healthy way, communicate it. And that's what these songs were. And so after in Hawaii, trying to figure all of these things out that I was going through, I ended up with another album. And then I recorded that album and just realized, no, I will always play music. That's what I am. It's not what I do, it's what I am. And I will always do it at some level.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful, man. That's that's crazy. That had to be so like you talked about, it had just had to upend your whole life. going through that
Yeah.
whole experience, huh?
Yeah. It was the single most difficult decision I've ever made in my life. And simultaneously, the most profound learning about myself and personal growth, and the best decision I ever made in my life.
Yeah. Doesn't make it any less hard. So,
No, 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 for sure not.
yeah,
For sure not.
right.
Yep.
Yeah, but good on you for doing the right thing, even when it's really hard to do the right thing. Because the day of, I mean, man, that takes some guts.
Oh, it's wild how many conversations I've had since then, with random people. I mean, people on flights and people wherever, who have said to me, I knew on the day of my wedding that I shouldn't go through with it, but it just, it's like the train's moving. How do you stop it? Everybody's there, and you're too committed at this point. You got to go through with it, and I've had many people say, "Good for you," because now I'm 15 years in, and I've got a couple of kids, and it's falling apart, and I don't know what to do. So yeah, it's wild. It is not easy, but I will say for anybody listening, if you have that feeling that this isn't right, you do not have to follow through with it just because people are there. I was in Hawaii. It was a destination wedding. People had flown in, and
Mm,
it was an awful thing to do to people, to them, to my fiance, to everybody, right? But I believe wholeheartedly in retrospect, looking back on it, that it was the best thing for everybody involved, her, me, everybody.
yeah. Wow. That's quite an experience to go through. And what a good thing to have music available to kind of sort through that and
Yeah,
kind of like you unburden yourself when you get that stuff out in the public. And some people do it through therapy, some people do it through another relationship, some people do it through
yeah.
friends. It sounds like you've almost always done it through music and song. And what a great thing to have in your life to kind of help recenter you and kind of manage through stuff.
Yeah, yeah, incredibly healthy, and just remarkably powerful again. I mean, you can see music a lot of different ways. You can view it as entertainment. You can view it as something that sells product. I mean, it's an incredible marketing tool. It's a fantastic bed for a movie as you're telling a story. But at its most powerful, I think it is an incredible tool to be able to think through and express very difficult emotion.
Yeah, for sure. So it feels like a really good segue there to pivot to the Melodic Caring Project, right? Because
Yep.
it feels like a lot of the same things that underpin your experiences with music, you've been able to translate into this awesome, awesome thing that you do. So walk the listeners through just let's start with what you do at the Melodic Caring Project, and then we'll go back to how it got started and kind of walk through the history of it.
Perfect. Yes. So the Melodic Caring Project was founded specifically to support kids and families that are undergoing isolation. So kids dealing with what we call profound illness, right? It might be cancers or chronic illnesses or just heavy acute illnesses, accidents or that sort of thing, where kids are stuck in hospitals for long periods of time. And in that experience, kids are in isolation. They're removed from their peer groups. They're removed from, a lot of family and friends, and they are in long-term isolation where they're just stuck with their pain or with their nausea or with their illness or whatever they're going through. And what we wanted to do was meet them where they were at and bring them hope in the midst of that situation. So that's what Melodic Caring Project does. And we have four core programs to do that, but I'll get into the other three. I'll start with our kind of the founding principle of what Melodic Caring Project came from, and that was live streaming concerts to kids in their hospital rooms, and then taking the names of the kids that are watching and giving them to the artists. So while they perform their show in front of their normal crowd at their normal venue, they can take a minute and say, "Guys, we've got something incredible happening at this show. We're partnering with the Melodic Caring Project. This show is being streamed to kids in hospitals around the world, and they can't be here with us. So we're sending them love. When you guys cheer, that is all love for the kids in the hospitals. Let's send them some love." And then they'll look straight into the camera, and go, "Joe, we know you're out there. We know you're going through a lot right now, and it's a really tough time, but we just want you to know you are not alone. Everybody here tonight is thinking about you. We are all sending you love. Whole crowd cheers, and those kids go from being invisible and feeling like they've slipped through the cracks of society to being the rock stars of the show. And that's what we call the kids with the Melodic Caring Project. The kids are the rock stars, the artists become the number one fans, and then everybody's there to support the kids in the hospital rooms.
Man, that is so cool. You told me about it before, and I was like, man, we absolutely have to have Levi on. But just hearing it again, like, gives me goosebumps to think
Oh,
about the support that you're given to. It's not hyperbolic at all to say I'm certain that what you're doing has saved some lives, where kids are either whatever willing to give up and not fight through their disease, or maybe they're thinking about suicidal thoughts, things like that. Those types of things can make a difference in people's lives. So man, that's got to feel um so both powerful and humbling at the same time, I would think.
it is both of those. And you are, I mean, you absolutely nailed it. You're right. We have been, it's been a 15-year journey of us learning the power of music and compassion intentionally shared with these kids. And I we have had people say, you saved my life, you saved my life. And we always thought it was hyperbolic. We thought, oh man, what a sweet thing to say. And then we started to have deeper conversations with some kids that had grown. Like I say, it's been 15 years. So we had kids that were just children when they started with Melodic Caring Project that now are in their 20s and married and having kids, and they've come back and told us, no, you literally saved my life. I didn't care to fight anymore. I was done. I was ready for it to all be over. And that shout out, that connection gave me joy and hope, and that made me realize, no, I don't want to die. I'm not ready for this to be over yet. And then they fought for their own health, and there's a very powerful mind body connection, and if you've lost the will to live, your body can give up. But if you have the will to live, you can fight through things that otherwise would kill you, and that's something we've seen. And then on the other hand, like you say, we have those rock stars that have been suicidal and have just not seen a reason to go on, right? They haven't had purpose, they haven't had love, they haven't felt seen or appreciated or valued. And the shout outs from the artists, the relationships they made with Melodic Caring Project and some of the other rock stars showed them, no, you are valuable. You are cared for. You are loved. You are precious. And there is purpose for your life. You have to figure that out. And you said it earlier, that idea that sometimes the moment you're in, it feels like it, but it's not. It's we're not out of the forest yet, but you're gonna be. And that's the thing, is you have to remind kids that this forest isn't forever. You will reach an end, but you just have to continue, hold on, and give them a reason to hold on. And Melodic has done that on a number of occasions, which is amazing.
Wow. Yeah. Does it make more sense? You tell me. You talked about four pillars, and that's the main one. There's three other pillars. Or should we talk about how you stumbled across the Melodic Caring Project? Which one makes more sense to talk about now?
Yeah, let's go back and talk about where Melodic Caring Project came from, because like you say, the that music journey that felt like it was at an end, and I didn't know, just didn't know, right? Didn't know what the next step was. Turned out actually to be a critical place to, I think sometimes, I mean, there's a lot of analogies for it, right? Sometimes the forest has to burn down so there can be new life, new growth, and that's where I was at. I was at a place where everything had been reduced and burned down, and that created opportunity for new life and new inspiration.
Yeah.
So
Um, and so how did it start? Like, you didn't just one day wake up and go, you know what I should do? I should stream
no,
concerts.
no,
Yeah.
no. I mean, man, just like you say, it's those difficult choices that those difficult. Sometimes those struggles, those closed doors that force you in another direction that you never would have dreamed up yourself. Melodic was not something that we sat down and thought, you know what we should do? We should come up with a project that wasn't that at all. And it's okay. So stepping back, I'm in Hawaii. I met my now wife at the time while I was there. And Okay, I'll truncate this. This all has to be truncated. We got married. I moved back to Washington State. She was in Seattle, and we just, kind of started a life together. And I was still playing music a little bit. I wasn't playing out really that much or anything. But still just loved it, right? And she knew that music was a big part of who and what I am. Stephanie, my wife, is a brilliant business mind, is what she is. So she was a property manager. She's a full service bookkeeper, accountant, um, and so as we started to kind of make a life together, right? And she saw what music meant to me. Uh, she did something that is a very sweet gesture, which as a musician is like the biggest drag in the world. She signed me up for a battle of the bands, and thought that it was a really great thing that she was doing for me. She was like, I sign you up for this thing. It's going to be amazing. And if any musicians that are listening, Battle of the Bands are the freaking worst. They're like, you become a product, or what you become the means by which somebody else can sell their product. Always, it's what ends up happening. And you end up, your music just gets commoditized, and it's all about bringing a crowd to a new venue, or bringing it, you know what I mean? It's always something not music related, but using your music to help their business type of thing. So she signed me up for this thing. It was a national Slurpee battle of the bands, which then is just strike two. I'm like, Slurpee? You want me to do a Slurpee thing? And I thought, she's just trying to help. She's trying to be supportive. That's really sweet. I'm not going to tell her that this is the worst thing ever, because it doesn't matter. I'm not going to be accepted anyway. Just let it pass. Like, thank you so much, Steph. That's really sweet of you. Now I can forget about this. Well, a couple weeks or a couple months go by, and she comes back and she's all excited. She goes, oh my gosh, you got in. And I go, what do you mean I got in? Got into what? And she goes, the Battle of the Bands. You were accepted. And then I'm like, oh, okay, now I have to tell you why this is the worst thing ever and why you don't understand. But so I start to tell her, Steph, you know what? I appreciate it so much. It's a really sweet gesture. It really is. But these things are never good. These are never good things for musicians. And she goes, I think it's pretty cool, actually. They're gonna fly you down to LA, and you're gonna open for Train at the House of Blues. And it was just as Hey Soul Sister had come out. So Train was massive. And I was like, no, there's no way. Now we have to fly the band down, put them up in a hotel down on the strip, and she's like, no, it's all expenses paid. So, okay, all right, let's see what happens. So we do this thing. We fly down to LA, we play, we open for a Train at the House of Blues. We make it through that round. They fly us to Austin. We do a video. We make it through that round. So anyway, in the end, at the end of this battle of the bands, there's two bands. There's a band in LA playing at the Roxy, and there's us playing at the Tractor in Seattle. And the reason I tell this story is because this was 2008, and live streaming was not a thing, right? Nobody was doing it. Nobody even knew it existed. But the final battle of this national battle of the bands was live streamed, so that there was a global viewership that was voting on the final two bands. And we played the final show. We ended up taking second place in this battle of the bands. But what it did was introduce me to this idea of streaming. I was like, what a cool concept. I don't know when I would ever use it, but Livestream, the platform, had just launched not long before that. It was free. I thought, man, I'll sign up for an account, and I don't know when I'll ever use it, but here it is. So I signed up for it. Then, a year passes, and I never even think about live streaming. And I'm talking with Steph, and I had recorded another album, and she came to me and she said, Levi, music is a really bad investment. Have you ever thought about that? And I was like, yes, yes. I mean, at this time, I've lived 20 years of bad investment with music. Like, I'm fully aware, Steph, that this is probably not going to make us any money. I know, and you have to realize that that's not what it's about. That's music is about. I can't even explain to you what it's about. You have to feel it. It's about a connection. It's about a way that you can. Um, Man, it's about the way you can express yourself in a way that other people resonate with, and it brings people together. And there's something about that that's incredibly important and powerful. And I know it doesn't feel like it to you because you're not doing it, but it's critical. And she goes, well, if it's not about making money, then what's it about? And I said, it's about connecting. It's about people. It's about somehow the music bringing people together. And she said, okay, then why are you playing in bars? I was like, well, touche. Because that's where you play as a musician. That's what you do. I mean, you book a show at a bar and you go and you play. That's what you do. And she said, well, it's bad. It's bad business model. If you think that music is about connection, then you need to go play somewhere where people are there to connect. And that's not what they're there to do in the bar. It's like, yeah, you're totally right. So, all right. So try to figure out what that means and what to do with it. And as I'm struggling with this concept of what is music to me now, it's something critical, but it's not a moneymaker. So what do I do with it? And in the middle of that, I had a buddy who called me, who's a middle school teacher at a small school up by where we live. So we live in Mount Vernon, Washington. The school is in Bayview. It's a very small school. And he calls me and says, Levi, I've got a student that was just diagnosed with leukemia. And Ryan, his name is Ryan. He's a good friend. He's been, you know, come out to shows for years. His little brother used to be our drummer. So he knows music is very meaningful to me. And he calls and says, I don't know what to do with this. Do you have any ideas? And I think that he knew that my go-to would be music. And I just said, yeah, Ryan, let's let her know that she's not alone. Let's put on a concert. Let's let Katie know that we are going to support her as she goes down this journey of leukemia, because it's going to be a heavy, long battle.
Yep.
And so we gathered, friends and classmates and community members and everybody together in a spot called the Lincoln Theater in Mount Vernon. And we put on a concert for Katie. And the whole idea was just so that Katie knew she was being supported as she went down this road. And it turned out that the day of the concert, Katie had to be quarantined in the hospital to go through a bone marrow transplant. And it had defeated the entire purpose of what we were doing, right? The whole idea is let's have a show so Katie knows she's not alone. And the day of the show, Katie was completely alone in the hospital in quarantine. And I had a laptop just like this. And lo and behold, I had a live streaming account that I had never used, that I never knew what I would do with it. And I thought, man, we could stream this show to Katie in the hospital. I have an account. Let's set it up. So I just set up a live stream session, sent Katie the link in the hospital, and literally set the computer on the edge of stage, played the show, and just like I said earlier, looked into the camera and said, Katie, you're supposed to be here. Everybody is here for you. And we just want you to know we love you and we're supporting you and you are not alone. We're going to back you up this whole journey. We've got you. Your community's behind you. And then I picked up the computer and turned it around and everybody in the crowd waved at Katie in the hospital room. And I really didn't think it would be an emotional connection for Katie. If anything, I thought it'd be more of a disappointment that, well, I was supposed to be there and I missed it.
Mm.
And called Katie in the hospital afterwards, and her mom were both sobbing because of this connection that was made with them watching this concert being live streamed to them in the hospital, and just them knowing that there's a whole crowd of people that are there supporting us. And so Stephanie and I, my wife and I, looked at that, and given the whole conversation we had just had, right, about music being a bad investment, and if the purpose is for connection, then you're doing it wrong, And it was like all these puzzle pieces lined up, and we thought, holy smokes, there it is. This is what the last, 25 years of my life has been about, was this path that I had no idea was leading me to this experience. And so we started to look into it thinking, there's got to be somebody else doing this. It's too powerful and too easy, honestly, for somebody else to not be doing it. And so we just devoted ourselves. I was working construction full time. She was doing property management full time. And every Friday, we'd come home from work and we would put our Friday evenings into just kind of doing market research. Who's doing this? What are the obstacles? And it turned out nobody's doing this. And there really are no obstacles. We just have to start doing it. And then we thought, I wonder if the only reason it was meaningful to Katie is because, like I say, she missed it. Maybe she was sad as much as she was happy. And maybe it was just because she knew everybody in the crowd. So we thought, well, we need to do this again for somebody that we don't know. And Katie had met a little guy by the name of Braden while she was at the hospital, who also was going through leukemia. And And so she asked him if he would like a concert. And he said, yeah, I would love that, because a leukemia diagnosis is brutal. I mean, you're in the hospital for months and there's nothing to look forward to. It's chemotherapy, it's radiation, it's needle pokes, it's nausea, it's vomiting, it's hair loss. There's just not much to look forward to, And
Mm.
so being able to provide something positive, something to look forward to is a really big benefit to those kids. So Katie asked him if he would on a show. He said yes. So we set up a show in a couple of weeks. Said, great, we'll do a show in a couple of weeks. And as we started to get closer, Braden was more and more excited. It was something to look forward to. His mom Renee was very excited. Turned out the day of the concert, Braden had to have a double dose of chemo. It was just part of his regime. They didn't know it was going to fall that way. He got really dosed up and was just vomiting all day long. And it came to the evening of the show, and his mom thought, man, this is the only thing he's been looking forward to, and he's going to miss it because he's too sick. And the show started at 8. He leaned over, it was like 7:55. He's just vomiting uncontrollably, and she panicked and thought, we have to do something. And she opened the computer and clicked the link, and the show came up. And the artist was saying, Braden, we know you're there. We're all here. We're thinking about you. We know you don't know us. We've never met you. Nobody here has met you, but we love you. We're thinking about you. We just want you to know that you're not alone as you're there in the hospital. And everybody here in this venue tonight is supporting you. This show is for you. And same thing, whole crowd cheered for Braden, waved at the camera. And Renee, his mom, said that he wiped his mouth and sat back up and looked into the camera and then looked at his mom and said, Mom, they just called me out by name. And she said, yeah, Braden, this is for you, buddy. And she said that was it. He didn't throw up for the rest of the night because it engaged him on such a personal and emotional level that that kind of spiritual emotional connection to what was happening took his mind off of the nausea, off of the chemo, and he watched the show for the rest of the night with no nausea. And she said that halfway through the show, she looked down and he just had big tears rolling down his face. And she said, Braden, what's going on? And Braden said, Mom, they don't even know me. Why are they doing this? And so when we heard that story, we realized this is powerful. We have to explore this. And that was the birth of the Melodic Caring Project. And so we just started doing it. We started streaming shows to kids. We didn't know anything about nonprofit work. We were not a nonprofit. We were just two people that believed in this powerful connection, this ability to support kids in hospitals with these live shows. And so like I said, we started to do it somewhere in between. We did a homecoming show for Katie when she came home from the hospital. My dad was there, but we've had a family construction company my whole life, ever since I was little. And my dad, as much as he was tried to be supportive of music, always, especially through my 20s, was like, okay, time to hang it up. You had a great run. Like, grab your tool bags. Let's go. It's time to get to life. And he just, he could never quite. It's the same was with Steph, with my wife, like knew it was meaningful to me, but could never feel why it was meaningful to me. Right. And so when we did the homecoming show for Katie, when she came back from the hospital, my dad came out to that show. And afterwards, he came up to me and he put his hands on my shoulders and he said, I get it. I get it, and that was I mean, for me, is it, I was meaningful to me. Obviously, I want my dad to be proud of what I'm doing, and so he went off to his accountant and attorney and said, you got to see what my son's doing. This is pretty incredible work. They said, we love it. We'll turn him into a 501(c)(3). And so the attorney incorporated us. The accountant went out and filed all the 501(c)(3) paperwork. And next thing my wife and I knew, we were a functioning 501(c)(3) nonprofit and had no idea what we were doing and had to learn, what does that mean now and how do we operate as a nonprofit? So we built a board of directors and we just started to stream more shows, and started with independent artists, started with living room shows. It was all 20 people, 30 people, very intimate settings with some friends in Seattle, called the Seattle Secret Shows. And then we got our first show with a larger band, and things just started to grow. And, now 15 years in, we've supported over 51,000 kids and families around the world with artists like Coldplay and Dirks Bentley and Zach Brown and Lauren Daigle and Flo Rida and Black Eyed Peas. And, I mean, some of the biggest artists in the music world today have joined us to support kids in hospitals. And when there's a crowd of 20,000 people cheering for the kids, I mean, you just imagine the impact for these kids that feel like they've been forgotten.
Wow. That is just an amazing story, and that's got to feel so good. Um that all of this time and energy and emotion that you poured into a medium has manifested itself in such a positive way. And I would call out for our listeners a couple of things. One, this is a 15-year-old kid that picked up a guitar, right? So
Yes,
you don't
right.
you don't know where it's going to lead you. And two, Levi and the Melodic Caring Project, it's not about making money. It's about affecting people's lives in a positive way. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can be successful in the world, and a lot of them have not a goddamn thing to do about making money. And so we got to get off of that consumerism, look at me mentality that permeates our society, and recognize when something this good is out there that you don't know. You could be doing something like this too, but you got to take action and you got to stick with
Yep.
it. And it may lead you
Yep.
down that road. So I didn't want to interrupt you at all when you were talking because it was such a powerful story. But I had those two things in my mind that we just got to recap this for the listeners to make sure it doesn't get lost in translation, right? So,
Man, I
uh,
think that's very, very well put. Absolutely. Yep.
yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing the story and the background behind it. So now let's pivot back. You had talked about three other pillars to the Melodic
Yeah.
Caring Project. We haven't covered those yet, so let's go to those now.
Well, okay. And what's interesting, I mean, and it fits actually remarkably well with the conversation and kind of the premise of your show, right? Is that action, motion, right? You can't direct something that's standing still. So you have to be moving. I mean, you could be blundering, you could be a bull in a china shop, blundering into things and breaking things. But as long as you're in motion, you can find the path that you need to be on. If you're not in motion, there is no path available to you. And the only absolute failure is in never trying in the first place, right? So that's what this was. And for melodic, it's funny because every time this is something I'm trying to learn to internalize and have more, I guess, kind of more faith in, right? Is when a door closes and it feels like the end of the world or the end of the road or the end of a dream or the end of whatever, it's not. It is a redirection that it's time to, man, it's just time to dig deep. Those are the moments it's time to dig deep and find out what your next step is. Because in my experience, inevitably, every closed door has been a redirection that was critical and was necessary. So specifically in Melodic Caring Project, I'll tell two stories of redirections that felt like the end of what we were doing. So when we first started Melodic Caring Project, we were maybe a year into it. And we had pretty quickly realized there's no way that we're going to be able to work full time like we're doing and run Melodic Caring Project full time like we were trying to do. So, and we had two kids. We had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old at this point. So life was remarkably busy. And my construction, I was doing VA work. So it was all handicap access work all over the state. I was gone 5 days a week. I'd pack up, leave Monday morning, and come back Friday evening or Saturday. And it was just too much to balance running Melodic Caring Project, spending the weekends trying to stream shows, and then working all week long. And Steph and I had we had to have a real kitchen table meeting, like, okay, we can't continue to do this. What are we going to do? And we both believed in the work. There had been too many of those stories, like the Katie and the Braden and just the incredible connection that was necessary, that life-giving connection to these kids that desperately needed it. And so we thought, well, we can't give up melodic, so we're going to have to give up our jobs. So we had 6 months of reserve in our bank account. And we thought within 6 months, we will somehow figure out how to fund Melodic Caring Project so we can continue to do it. So I hung up and what we decided was, okay, tell you what, let's look for a sign. We need something, right? We're not just going to blindly say we're quitting our jobs, we're going to do a Melodic Caring Project. Let's look for some success metric that says now is a good time to jump into this thing, you know? So we decided either somebody will come along and really love what we're doing and bring in some funding that allows us to do it, or we'll create a partnership out of what we're doing that will show us that the the concept has enough credibility that a large established organization will get involved with it. And that's what happened. I was working, I was doing a framing job over in Yakima, Washington, which is about 4 hours from home. And I got a call from the children's hospital saying, "We love what you're doing. We want to partner with you to offer this service to the kids that we're serving." And thought, okay. And I came home from my job. It was Friday night. Steph and I sat down. We had a meeting. Said, "What do you think?" And we said, "Well, this is what we said we were looking for." So okay, let's jump. I hung up my bags. We still did some property management, but we curtailed it back quite a bit and just focused on trying to build Melodic Caring Project. And that's what we did for 6 months. We burned through all of our reserves, and after 6 months, we realized, holy crap, we're completely broke, and we've got a partnership with a hospital that is not making us any money. And then what's interesting is the hospital started to get kind of like, well, not the hospital. Let me say this differently. The music therapist at the hospital started to change his approach to us and say, I can't offer this to the kids anymore. And I said, well, what do you mean? And it was interesting because for that 6 months, he was sending emails going, holy, this is unbelievable. The impact is incredible. Do you realize what you've created here? And just all of this feedback that was nothing but 100% positive. Finally, 6 months in, he came to me and he said, I can't offer your program to the kids anymore. And I said, well, what do you mean? This came completely out of nowhere. And he said, well, I'm just worried. I'm worried that this is a HIPAA breach to the kids in our care. And I was like, okay, in what way is this a HIPAA breach? And he cited a picture that had been sent to us from one of the little kids that we had been supporting, and he had a hospital bracelet on. And he said, well, see right there, there's hospital information. I said, well, okay, zoom in on that, and you'll see that there is no hospital information. We've photoshopped it all out. And he said, no, no, we're done. We can't do this anymore. And he closed the door. So the only hospital that we were partnered with for this organization that we had just spent our 6 months reserve savings on had now closed its door to us. And what we realized is he was threatened by the organization as a music therapist. He was afraid that we were going to come in and displace his position in the hospital.
That's wild.
Oh man, it's wild. It's tragic that it was so close, so narrow-minded that he and we were having conversations. I was saying, man, you should not see this as a threat. You should see this as another tool that you can offer these kids. You have way more kids than you can serve. Melodic can serve them. And that was exactly the problem in his mind, is that he couldn't serve them. He couldn't visit them room by room. We could hit every room at once and bring 10,000 people in to support these kids,
Hmm. Yep.
So he closed that door, and this is the point of the story. Is like we say, when a door closes and you feel like that's the end, So we had no money and we had no partnership, and we thought, man, what do we do from here? I mean, this is it. We got to go back to work, and we thought, okay, one last ditch effort. Let's find out if there are other hospitals that would like to be involved. And so as I started to research other hospitals, thinking, now I'm going to have to find a hospital, build a partnership. I mean, it took months to build this partnership with Seattle Children's, and we didn't have the runway to do that. So I was looking, trying to find partnerships, and I found this organization called hold on, let me think of the name. It's Child Life, the National Child Life Association. So, Child Life is an group inside of hospitals who their job is specifically to bring programming to kids that are going through long-term care, right? And I realized, man, there's this National Child Life Conference where hospitals from around the country come to learn about new programming for kids in hospitals. Holy smokes, we have to do this, you know? And so we spent money that we didn't have and we flew out and we did this conference. And at the end of the conference, we had 87 hospitals signed up for the Melodic Caring Project programming
Wow.
because what we were doing was so revolutionary in the space. Nobody was doing anything like this. And we had this line of child life staff at our booth wanting to know about this new program that we were doing. And so there it is, right? This closed door that feels like the end of your dream is actually a redirection to something that exponentially expands what you thought was capable with your vision. And then the next example of that was COVID. So Melodic Caring Project was an organization that streamed live concerts to kids in hospitals. What's the first thing that closed down with COVID?
Right. Yeah.
All live concerts, you know. So we realized, holy crap, we're an organization that streams live concerts to kids in hospitals, and there's not a live concert happening in the nation, you know. What are we now? And over the years, so COVID was 10 years into Melodic Caring Project. And in that 10 years of growth, we had expanded from, you know, from one hospital to over 300 hospitals in 27 countries around the world, live streaming concerts to kids in hospitals. Um, but in the middle of that, there was all of these other kind of like ancillary connections that were happening with the kids. You know, we were growing relationships with these kids and families and realizing this is so much more than a one-off. You know, we had been supporting kids for years and had become close friends and family friends. And we had rock star kids that had passed away and their families still came back to Melodic Caring Project as this home for them, a place for them to express themselves and what they'd experienced and to appreciate the support that we gave their kids on their struggles, you know. And so through all of these ancillary programs, we had done things like one-on-one connections where I just started calling kids and doing just like this, a Zoom call, and just playing a little concert for a kid in a hospital room or a kid who is at home, you know, in quarantine. And just a way to pick them up, right? Show them, hey, you're not alone. We can still connect. We don't have a concert for 2 more weeks, but let's you and I connect tomorrow. I'll play you your own concert, you know? And so we just started doing these other little ways to connect. And then COVID hit, all concerts shut down, and we had to stop and go, is it over or is there another path? And it forced us to look at these other what weren't programs at the time. They just happened to be byproducts of what we were doing because of melodic and go, you know what? That would make a really powerful program for Melodic Caring Project. These one-on-one connections with the kids, you know, these
Hmm.
group sessions with the kids. Then the other thing that we were doing was for kids that knew were going to have a really difficult week that could just use support throughout the week, we would record a song, you know, with a message and just say, Joe, we know this is going to be a really tough week for you. We're here. We want, you know, we're supporting you this week. We're thinking about you. We're sending you tons of love. I know you love, you know, Imagine Dragons. This is a song from Imagine Dragons. I'm recording this. I learned this song for you. You know, a message with the song they love and send it to them. It's a 5 minute connection for them that they will watch 10, 15, 20 times as they're going through procedures, needle pokes, nausea, hospitalizations, all of that sort of thing. And we realized, man, that's really powerful too. So we launched these three other programs. So live stream concerts was our core program. Then we launched one-on-one music therapy sessions, group music and art therapy sessions, where the kids, another thing that's really powerful is these kids feel, like I say, alone, right? There are millions of kids across America that are sick, but most of them don't know each other, you know?
Mm.
So in a small group of friends, there's probably only one that's sick and they feel very alone and the kids don't know what to do with it. You know, there's a psychology that goes along with it, you know. I mean, until you're up into your late teens or 20s, you don't gravitate towards fear and illness. You gravitate away from it, right? And so for the younger rock stars, you know, anywhere from 5 to, you know, 15, 16, 17, as they are getting sick with life-threatening illnesses, their friends aren't coming to them. They're backing off because it
Yeah.
scares them. And so it leaves the kids in this really remote, isolated, scary, lonely place, you know? And so these group sessions that we do are an opportunity for rock stars to gather. And we don't focus on sickness. We focus on writing songs and playing games and doing art projects, but they're all with other kids that know what they're dealing with. And there's something incredibly freeing about that, right? So as these kids gather with other kids that know what they're experiencing and going through, there's just an intrinsic understanding of each other. And maybe they'll talk about their illness, maybe they won't. And if they do, they don't have to explain it to these kids. You know, they'll say, hey, I'm going in for a scan or whatever. And the other ones will go, oh man, I did that last week. That's brutal. You know what you need to do? What I realized is if you take some lemonade with you when you go through that scan, because it tastes so gross when they take the tube out of your mouth or whatever, you know, take a sip of lemonade. Like they're laughing about it and they're helping each other. And we realize, man, this is incredibly powerful. You know, they're
Mm.
coming together to help each other through these really difficult times. So that became a core program. So now we have live stream concerts, one-on-one music therapy sessions, group music and art therapy sessions, and what we call rockstar requests, which are these recorded songs and messages of love. And we have a team of rockologists, we call them, who are just artists, musicians from around the world that will learn a song for a kid, record a special message for them, and we'll send it to the kids just as a little boost of confidence for them. So those are our four programs now.
Wow, that is so cool, man! And just look at the kind of metamorphosis of how it's anytime you've faced an inflection point or adversity,
Yep.
you keep taking action, you find a solution, and here you are
Yep.
15 years in. That is amazing. Great work by you and
Well,
Steph.
thank you, man. I will say you had an episode a little while ago. It was one of your short episodes about fear and about inaction, right? And how fear leads to inaction and inaction leads to regret almost always, right? And because the thing is, the chances that you don't take live on in your mind as what would have happened, right? What are the opportunities that I passed up? Whereas the things that you tried and fail at, there's closure on. So you can go, I tried that, it failed, I move on. That's that's what's amazing, right? And so, just like you said, I mean, run forward. If you fail running forward, hey, you failed doing something beautiful, and that's what we've realized with Melodic is, you know what? If it fails tomorrow, every moment has been worthwhile. But in that mindset of I'm just going to keep pushing, doors have opened that we never would have seen coming, right?
Mm.
Relationships and landscapes and just beautiful connections that we would have shut down just for fear of failure, that just pushing forward, uh not taking closed doors as signs that it should be over, but as now we redirect, now we dig deep, now we find out what the next step is, you know, has just led to an incredible journey that has provided all of that purpose for my music that I had been chasing for my lifetime, you know, for 25 years.
Yep. Man, that is such a cool story. Probably didn't feel cool while you're going through parts of it, but
Uh,
I love it. Where do you get your funding from now? Is it hospitals? Is it private donors? How does the project get funded now?
yeah, so you know, this was something we had to learn because, like I said, we had no nonprofit experience, so we have had to learn how to successfully run a nonprofit, and it is private donors. The program is completely free for kids, free for hospitals, free to the artists. Nobody pays for Melodic Caring Project programming. This is provided by the goodwill of people who believe in the work that we're doing, and so it's mostly independent donors. You know, we have had some corporate partnerships that have helped bring melodic to the kids, but those are in flux. You know, they come and go with whatever the corporation's marketing focus is at the time. And we have found that um, yeah, just individual people that believe in what we do is where the bulk of our funding comes from.
Mm. And I guess in my mind, and I don't know if this is right or not, but in my mind, you've got a group of well-known artists who do concerts. How do you engage with or incorporate them to the Melodic Caring Project? How do you get them to do this for kids?
Yeah. Uh, Shamelessly. I will say, man, I will reach out to anybody, and that's all it's been. It's just been straight elbow grease. It's reaching out to management if you can't get management, because A-list artists, their management is not listed. Too many people are trying to get a hold of them.
Yep.
So it's digging. It's through relationships. I mean, I have 25 years of relationships in the music industry. My music manager was a part of Melodic Caring Project for a long time, and him and I, in our combined relationships, were able to reach a lot of management and a lot of companies and a lot of labels and that sort of thing. So we would just reach out directly and say, "Hey, this is what we're doing. Your artist is coming through town on July 25th, playing at the Paramount. We are partnered with the Seattle Theater Group, who owns the Paramount. We would love to stream your show to kids in hospitals. You don't have to do anything. You show up, play your normal show to your normal crowd. We will bring out a complete 5-camera production. If your artist will take 1 minute in the middle of their show and talk about what we're doing, tell the crowd what we're doing to support kids in hospitals, and then call the kids out by name, I promise you, their crowd will love them that much more, because it's amazing the connection it makes, right? People are there to watch music because they connect with the artist in some way, shape, or form. When the artist shows the audience that they genuinely care about people, the depth and the relationship between the artist and the audience immediately is stronger and more powerful. And it's amazing to see the energy take over a venue when the artist. Okay, I'll give another. This is a really funny story, actually, because we've worked with tons of artists of all different genres, right? From rap to country to folk to legacy artists. So we worked with Graham Nash and David Crosby from Crosby, Stills and Nash, both independently. They were both touring independently. Graham Nash, sweetheart, the guy's the sweetest guy in the world, and gave this beautiful speech in the middle of his set about the kids in the hospitals, played Teach Your Children Well. I mean, it was a venue of 60-plus-year-olds just openly weeping, because he's playing these songs for these kids in the hospitals. It was really beautiful.
Sure.
Okay. A couple months later, we do a show with David Crosby, who is, like known in the industry to be kind of a dick, right? And so his people say yes. We're there setting up for the show. David Crosby comes off stage, and I was like, "Hey, David, how's it going, man?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, good. What's up?" I was like, "Oh, we're here to stream this show to kids in hospitals." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, right, right." It's like, "Yeah, you think you'll give a shout out to the kids?" And he's like, "No, nope, I don't think so." It's like, okay, all right. Uh, okay, well, have a great show. While you play, know that you have kids that are in hospitals going through life-threatening illnesses that are watching your show, and you could make a big difference in their lives. And he's like, "Yeah, all right." And he walks away, and it's like, man, he really is a dick. you know? So so midway through the show, he sees one of our camera operators and he goes, "Oh yeah, there's an organization here streaming this show to kids in hospitals." And the whole crowd goes, and David, like, he's like, "Whoa." And he takes a step back from the mic and he goes, "Yeah, yeah, it's a good thing. It's a pretty good thing." And so then he starts to get into it and give shout outs to the kids in the hospital, and the whole crowd gets involved, and it's just funny because it's one of those examples of the work. It's good for everybody. Like, nobody walks away from this a loser. It's good for the artist. It's good for the crowd. In that moment, it endeared the crowd to David Crosby, who they love him as an artist, but actually in a moment they thought maybe he's not such a jerk. I mean, so yeah.
That is wild. How would you say no to that? Like, I mean, uh, wow, that's wild. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's crazy. The artists that you have that will learn and perform a specific song,
Yeah.
so they'll cover a song by a well-known artist, but they'll cover it for the kid that's isolated. Where do you find
Yep.
them? How do you connect with those folks?
That's a great question. Thank you. I mean, some of them are just friends I've been playing forever. And so, I've made a lot of music friends along the road, and some of them have come along and like love what I'm doing. And want to be a part of, of the project. And so they will learn songs for the kids. But is, there are a lot of artists out there, right, that know that their music can connect, is meaningful, and are looking for ways for their music to do that, to do something more than just entertain or sell a product. And there's no products to sell anymore. You can't sell a CD anymore. So what, I mean, might be able to sell a shirt, but no, they're looking for things that their music, it gives their music meaning, which in turn gives their passion meaning and purpose, and so um yeah, on our website, artists can go and sign up to be rockologists with the Melodic Caring Project and join us to learn songs and send them to the kids in hospitals. So if anybody's listening right now that's a musician that wants to connect and help support these kids in hospitals, we'd love for you to sign up.
That's awesome. And just so everyone knows, we will put Melodic Caring Project and all the pertinent information in the show notes. So you're not going to have to go digging for it somewhere else. So we'll put that in the show notes and you can get it right down there. Um, and then, so the kids themselves, you've got relationships with lots of hospitals. But if
Yep.
someone knows of a kid that's going through something like that, how do they get in
Yep.
touch with the Melodic Caring Project to perhaps lift that kid's spirits?
Man, you're asking all the right questions, Joe. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's another thing. So another thing we realized along the course, and this is something that COVID also helped us somehow discover, is that um, especially teens, they don't want pity, right? The kids and teens, they don't want pity. They don't want to be seen as sick. They don't want to be seen as patients. They want to be rock stars, which is why we call the kids rock stars. But sometimes they won't sign themselves up because they feel like, then they're asking for help.
Sure.
So we created a nomination form on Melodic Caring Project. So when you go to the Melodic Caring Project website, under there's a get involved or a sign up tab, and you can nominate a rock star for Melodic Caring Project. So if you know somebody and this isn't just physical illness either, that's another thing we realized during COVID, is that mental health is so critical, and that's squarely where Melodic Caring Project lives. We do support kids in hospitals. We do help them with their health, but we help them with their health through supporting their mental health. And it's that support, that's that mind body connection that then helps their physical health. So kids that are dealing with depression, kids that are suicidal, kids that are just need to be seen, to be witnessed, to know that somebody cares about them. Sign them up. We would love to send them a song and let them know that they're being cared for, thought of, supported, loved. And you can do that by nominating them as rock stars through the Melodic Caring Project website.
Nice. And we didn't talk about it when we talked about the funding, but I
Mm.
gotta assume if donating and or contributing, there
Yep.
is a function for that on the website as well.
Yep, absolutely. There is a donate button on the website. I think it's on every page of the website because, like I say, this isn't possible without the support of just compassionate folks that want to help support kids that are going through hard times. So they can you can go to the donate button and send a one-time donation, or we have a program going right now that is what we're trying to do. Like I say, we did not come from the nonprofit world, and the thing that we enjoy least about the nonprofit world is having to ask for money. It's the friggin' worst. So
Yeah.
what we're trying to do, we have a program called Thousand True Fans. If we can get 1,000 people giving $1 a day, Melodic Caring Project is 100% funded, and we can focus solely on supporting kids in hospitals rather than going and trying to do fundraising so that we can support kids in hospitals. Um, so if anybody wants to sign up to be a true fan for $30 a month, $1 a day, we can get 1,000 of those. Melodic is 100% funded, and we are just supporting kids around the world.
Wow. That's awesome. So we've got multiple ways for you, Salty Ginger Talk listeners, to engage with Melodic Caring Project. If you're a musician, you've got an opportunity here to do something really cool and good with your music. If you want to support the project, you can go to the website and make a donation, whether it's a one-time donation or become a true fan, like Levi just called out. If you know of a child that needs some pick me up, this service. You can nominate them on the website. So hoping we will see a lot of interaction between Salty Ginger Talk listeners and the Melodic Caring Project website when we publish this episode. So I'm calling on you. I'm doing my melodic care, talking to you.
Man, that's so appreciated, Joe. And it really takes a community, I mean, it takes us coming together. It's funny. We did a show with Regina Spektor a few years ago, and it was a really incredible show. It was beautiful. There's 5,000 people in the venue. Regina did an amazing job of tying the show to the kids in the hospitals, giving shout outs before every song. The whole crowd was cheering for the kids. And at the end of the night, it was just this feeling of togetherness, right? Like we had all come together to do something good. And it felt great, man. The crowd felt great. We felt great. Regina felt great. We were driving home from that show. It was about 2 in the morning. My wife and I, Steph, who at the time was our lead camera op as well. So, both still very involved in the everyday running of Melodic Caring Project. We're coming home just talking about what a great show. That was incredible. And on the radio, it came out that in Marysville, Washington, there was a shooting at Marysville Pilchuck High School. And um, man, it just was such a gut punch to me because Marysville's my home. It's where I grew up, man, and I had a buddy that was the high school basketball coach that was at the table next to the table where the shooting happened. I mean, it just was very close to home. And it was a real juxtaposition experience of coming from this community engagement experience where 5,000 people from totally different ideas, backgrounds, beliefs, everything were coming together to send love to these kids in the hospitals, to this feeling that our community had just been decimated in Marysville because of the shooting,
Mm.
and it made us realize how critical this work is on so many different levels. It's not just about supporting the kids. I mean, it is about that, but it's also about activating, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 people in a venue and reminding them that compassion is important. It's important to come together and care for each other, and it doesn't take huge acts of it's not big things. It's small things. It's just coming together, smiling at somebody, waving at somebody, opening a door for somebody, waving at a child in a hospital room through a camera at a concert. These are small acts that make big differences, and that's another thing that I think melodic is really important, is to remind people that compassion is critical.
Yeah, for sure. Man, such good stuff. Such good stuff. So I always do this towards the end of all of our interviews. Is there anything that I haven't asked you or that we haven't talked about yet that you want to make sure our listeners hear, whether it be about you, whether it be about life, whether it be about the Melodic Caring Project? I kind of open the floor to the guest to cover anything they want. And if you don't have anything, that's cool too. Not trying to put pressure on you, but the floor is yours.
Oh man, I appreciate it. So first, let me just say you're a phenomenal host, and you asked so many of the right probing questions that just naturally. I think we covered everything from a melodic caring project standpoint. What I will say is, having listened to Salty Ginger Talk and knowing what your heart is, right, to activate, to engage people. I also listened to the podcast that you did about young men, and the need for that healthy masculine energy in the world is critical, and so I will just I think less about melodic, more about Salty Ginger Talk, and what you guys are doing is, to anybody that's listening, um life's crazy. It feels very defeating at times, and i think um I think it's easy to be defeated. I think in a lot of ways, I mean, something about the social media, something about we're surrounded by a lot of things right now that the news cycles, there's a lot of heaviness that are lend towards a feeling of giving up or quitting, or, um, and in the vein of what we're talking about, I will just say, continue, do what you're doing. Don't let the frustration, don't let the defeat stop you. Don't let the fear of failure stop you. Um, whatever it is you do, you bring something that's cool to the world, whether you know it or not right now, whether you're being told that or not right now. As you do it, the more you engage in the thing that you're passionate about and what your particular kind of skill set is, or the unique thing that you bring to the world is, continue on, man. Through the adversity, through the difficulty, focus on the thing that you want to accomplish and move. Just move. Don't you'll trip and fall as you move. That's not failure. All of those things are lessons. If you take your failures as opportunities to learn and refine the thing that you're particular about, you will hone in and dial in the thing that you do, and it'll resonate with people in a way that is critical and will bring life to you and will bring life to those people around you. So move, don't sit still, keep moving forward.
Man, great stuff. Great stuff. So I'll tell you, we bring guests on and we have such high caliber guests. And I'm always like, son of a bitch, are we going to be able to keep up the caliber and the pace of guests? And then we bring another guest on and they knock it out of the park like you just did. Loved getting a chance to kind of hear all about you, your story, how you fought your way through it and where it led you to the Melodic Caring Project. What a great thing you're doing for kids. We will go on to the website and we will absolutely, just from us from Salty Ginger Talk, we will be a true fan. So appreciate you making that available to us so we know about it. So
Amazing.
you can count on that from us. And
Ah,
yeah, look, if anywhere in the future it can be helpful to talk more about stuff, you just reach back out to us. There's always a spot for you here. Almost 2 hour conversation we had here. Although I appreciate it and enjoyed it immensely, we can do a quick episode. So if we can be helpful in any way, or even just to touch base, I'd love to just hear how you guys are doing, and if there's stuff we can do to help, we're more than willing to do it. So really appreciate you coming on. Great job, and keep doing all the great work that you're doing, man.
man, Joe, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for shining a light on the work we're doing. Thank you for building a platform because your platform, I'm sure, was not easy to build either. I mean, it took time, effort, sacrifice. Thank you for building a platform that allows, man, me to tell my story. Thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome. So really appreciate it, Levi. Thank you so much. Okay, guys. Wow. Like I said there at the end of the podcast, I keep I want to bring high caliber people and high caliber guests on, and like there's just so many good people doing good things out there and awesome people who have such a positive message, and we can certainly count Levi and the Melodic Caring Project in that bucket. So you heard him talk about adversity. You heard him talk about finding a way to fit in through music. You heard him talk about loving music, but not being able to make a living at music. You heard him talk about making a very difficult decision to stop a marriage on the day of the wedding. And then you heard him talk about building the Melodic Care Project over the last 15 years to where it is now. So such a great job by Levi and his wife Stephanie. We're really glad we were able to bring him on the podcast and expose that kind of commitment, that kind of passion, that kind of caring to our audience. So special props to Levi for coming on and being so candid and so willing to share with our audience. And again, we'll put all their information in the show notes here so you don't have to go looking for it. And you can get in touch with them if you're a musician that wants to play and support the Melodic Caring Project by playing for children, recording songs for children. If you want to donate to the Melodic Caring Project, you can do that too. Or maybe you know a child or children that need this service and you can nominate them to be a rock star on their website. So just a great episode. Great job by Levi. Really glad we had him on. So don't forget, guys, to head over to our website, Salty Ginger Talk. You can check out all of our podcast episodes there. All the links to our social media accounts are there. You've got the opportunity to subscribe to our newsletter that we publish every day there as well. And before you take off from here, please, if you can, like, comment, share, subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. It's super helpful for us if you do that. So I appreciate you checking out the channel. We're going to continue to bring you these high caliber, really cool guests that are doing great stuff out in the world. So don't miss the next episode. We'll see you there. Thanks, guys.